Welcome, Eaterin, to the D&M podcast. I'm Haydn and he's Matty Cole, newly single and ready to mingle. This episode is brought to you by Just Over Broke Recruitment. Just Over Broke are your recruitment and vacancy advertising specialists and have an extensive list of unattractive job vacancies. There is an employment opportunity for everyone, no expertise or qualifications required. Feel under-equipped to get a job? Want a stable minimum wage income with career longevity? No problem. Just Over Broke aim to help you find that next employment opportunity you will hate for the next 1 to 30 years and keep you living just over broke from pay to pay. So if you're unemployed and looking for that next opportunity, contact Just Over Broke. With the average person obtaining between 12 to 15 opportunities in their lifetime, your next one could be found just around the corner. Thank you, Just Over Broke, for sponsoring this episode. So, welcome back, episode 4 of the D&M podcast, where we get deep and meaningful, so you feel the need to get meaningfully deeper into conversation with everyone and anyone. We hope you enjoy the following episode, and if you want to get more deep and meaningful with us, you can. Just reach out to us on our social media and communication channels. Our social platforms are Twitter and Instagram at the D&M podcast, and our Gmail address is thednmpodcast@gmail.com. So if you're feeling overly generous and you want to be a day dot supporter, head across to patreon.com, search up the D&M podcast and subscribe for a monthly donation. They start for as little as $1, and I don't know about you, Matty, but I consider that a pretty good deal, a bargain I would even say. I'd compare it to paying $1 for a car and then finding out it's a Toyota Corolla. So something sturdy, reliable, and probably the only thing you ever need again. So yeah, welcome back, and how are you, man? How have you been for the last week?
Yeah, it's been good. Just reflecting on our last episode, I think I felt like I had so much more to say. I've got more tips. Just last night I was doing something with, I'm going to get credit cards. I've never had them before.
Oh, really?
I actually meant to ask you, but I'm going to get credit cards and use them to my advantage by using the interest-free time to offset a whole lot of stuff and get reward points. I was just crunching those numbers last night and working it, and I found I can actually make it work pretty well for me.
Yeah. To be fair, I don't know much about credit cards. I don't have one. I've always been a cash money kind of guy. Just, save it up, spend it. But yeah, if you find out it's a good, then I'll have a look at it.
Yeah, I'll send you my little sheet and you can see what I've crunched for myself. But I feel like I make it work to my advantage. But that was good, man. I really enjoyed last week's, and I feel like I've got a bit more to say about it. But maybe that's for another time.
Yeah, I've thought about it too, and after thinking about it and re-listening back to it, and then we talked a lot about Jeff Bezos, and we were kind of like, oh, he's got so much money, I bet he's a bad guy, and he probably doesn't do anything worthwhile with his money. We probably should have checked, actually. And then I wanted to then talk about other guys who make a lot of money, like Manny Pacquiao and stuff. And
but do a lot of good.
Yeah, and he gives away majority of his money. On the flip side of that, Floyd Mayweather keeps all his money and he flosses and he's a dick about it.
Yeah. There's definitely two sides to it.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, man, I enjoyed last week's topic. It was good, and just for the listeners out there, if we've got some, Maddie's mum, thank you again.
But also shout out to Chuck.
Yeah, big A.
Our first proper listener. Listen to 2 podcasts, so shout out to Chuck. We love you.
So yeah, man, hope you enjoy London, and listen to this one. It's a goodie. So this is actually I wrote this down before we'd even started the last podcast. But I feel it rolls in quite well with the last topic that we had. So this one, I've titled it Letter to Past Self. But what I really want to talk about today is advice that you wish you could tell your younger, handsomer version, Matty.
Don't know about handsomer, but
how to deal with life coming up. So that's what this topic is this week, is all about advice. And I don't know if you guys out there have got good advice. I thought about all the good advice that I've had, and I literally can probably only put it down to probably 4 things that I've lived my life by that I've got from people.
That you'd want to tell your past self?
Yeah, definitely. My past self got told it, and it's not now until I realised later on in life that it was handy advice. So, yeah, man, I just want to talk about that, and it could be bad advice too. You might have got some bad advice.
Yeah.
I just want to talk about all advice and then maybe work out how we understand or how we work out which is good and bad advice. Because and I'm going to quote Arnold Schwarzenegger here, and I remember I watched his movie Pumping Iron, and he talks about giving advice. And there's a guy, Louis. I can't remember what Louis' last name is, but he played the Hulk, and he's direct. Yeah, that's him. Yeah. And so he was in direct competition with Arnold, and Arnold says in there, he goes, "Oh, we're in competition, and Louis comes to me because I'm at the peak of my sport, and he comes to me for advices, and we're competitors. So what do I do?" And people are like, "Oh, you give him advice." He's like, "Yeah, I give him bad advice because I don't want him to beat me. I want to be the champ. I'm a competitor, and that's what it is." But Louis Ferrigno, he probably didn't know that advice was bad advice until he watched Pumping Iron and went, "Damn, Arnold, he gave me some stink advice."
Yeah. Or tried it himself and found out it didn't work.
Yeah, potentially, and wasted like months of training or something. So, yeah, just want to talk about advice. If you've got any, share some good stuff. Some bad stuff. Maybe you might have heard something from other people about what good advice is. And yeah, let's get into it, shall we?
Cool. I like it already.
Yeah. Have you got some good advice?
I was just thinking about it. It's quite a thing to be put on the spot for, to try to think of advice. But as a teacher, I find I'm in the advice giving industry. But I do find that kids don't often listen. I think the biggest teacher is actually life and experience itself. And I was thinking, if I did get the opportunity to go back in time in whatever form to tell my past self things, I think I don't even know if I'd really listen to myself, maybe, because that's just, I don't know, maturity-wise, mentality, brain development, that's where you're at, that you don't necessarily think that far ahead or think outside yourself that much. Or if people give you advice, you think, oh, no, I know better than them. Or I think that's just a product of the age.
Yeah, you don't reckon if like future Matty come back to past Matty and said, "Hey, Abigail Peterson, if you do this, you end up going out with her for 1 week."
I
mean, wouldn't listen to them.
If it was like Terminator 2 style, where there was like this ball of lightning, and then past Matty like genuinely believed it was. Sorry, past Matty believed it was future Matty there. Yeah. I think I would listen, because that's quite a scenario. But if I took that exact same advice and then like my mum said it to me, I'd be like, nah, I'm not listening to you.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So the one that immediately came to mind for me, because I think it's something I think about often, is, and I put it simply, is just take opportunities. I got presented quite a lot of opportunities in my life, and in taking them I've learned a lot, I've experienced a lot, and it's led to a lot of good things and sometimes bad things, and that's okay. Sometimes it's okay to have bad experiences or bad times, because you learn from them. It's all about learning. For example, after I went to university, I got a job, and I had a job for just over a year, but then I lost my job and I didn't have a job. And at that time I could have kept going and trying to find a job and to kind of do a daily grind. But at that point I thought, actually I want to go overseas, because I don't have a house, I don't have a mortgage, I don't have huge loans, don't have kids, don't have a partner. And so I thought, I've got this opportunity to go overseas, I'll take it. And I went overseas, and I've had lots of incidents where someone said, "Hey, do you want to try this or do this?" And it's almost like a yes man type thing. I've just said yes to as many things as possible. And I don't think I initially did that. I think especially through high school things, I turned down a lot of opportunities, but as I got older, I saw the value in them, and I took as many opportunities as I could, and I still try to do that to this day. And for better or worse, they've always come out with some learning. So I'd say that'd be my one bigger piece of advice: so just take every opportunity you can.
Yeah, it's funny you say like take opportunities, because I'm trying to instill in my children at the moment, like, just to try things, especially around food, man. Like, they're fussy anyway, unless it comes out of a packet. They don't want a bar of it. But I'm trying to instill in some, try it, just give it a go, try it. If you fail, you've done it once. I don't have to do it again.
At least you've given it a go.
Yeah, if it's a horrible experience. So that's definitely one thing I would suggest.
I've always said to my students that it's better to know by experience than to never have tried something. So when they come up to something difficult or a challenge or an opportunity and they're all a bit, I'm not sure, I'd say rather try it and know that you don't like it or that you don't want to do it than to always wonder what if, because that's a real painful one to live with, is to regret or wonder what if you could have done it. So rather know by experience would be my advice too.
Yeah, one thing I picked up, and this was in teaching practicum, and I kind of just like, it may have even been from like just scrolling through Instagram, but that's where it was. We went to like a graduation. It's called a space group for parents. So where the mothers go and they take their kids and they just basically talk about what happened for the week. And one lady there, she was worried because her child had started crawling, but wasn't walking with all the rest of the other kids. And then the teacher in charge, she was just like, "Have you ever seen a child crawl into school at 5 years old?" Everyone's like, "No." He's like, "Well, don't worry about it. They're going to get there at some stage." And then when I was going through my teaching practicum, and kids are like, "Oh, I can't do it. I'm not going to try it because I can't do it." I was like, "Well, do you remember when you couldn't walk?" And they're like, "No." And it's like,
one day you did?
Yeah, it was like, imagine if you were that baby that couldn't walk and you decided, I'm not going to try that. You know? Of course, the smart asses out there were like, "Oh, that'd be sweet as I get pushed around in my wheelchair all day."
Always one.
Yeah, there's always someone. But they just got to try something or just take opportunities. I reckon it's definitely a good one for definitely good advice. Because when I think back now, as a student at school, and then just getting opportunities to do stuff in our outdoor pursuits class, because that was compulsory in Form 3. It was just like, nah, I'm not going to keep a diary on how far I ran today, or nah, I'm not going to try and do 10 pull-ups because that's not me. I can't do 4, so I'm not going to try and do 10. You know, so yeah, right. Taking opportunities is definitely a good one. I did a quick Google search just to find out advice that people have been given. Actually, what I should have done is like check Reddit, actually, because that would have been more, I think, properly advice orientated. There's heaps out there that were all of the
like the BuzzFeed articles. So
like common 10 stuff. Yeah, so like narrow focus brings big results. Show up fully. Don't make assumptions. Be patient and persistent. In order to get what you want, you have to give. Luck comes from hard work. Like, these are all like common things.
Yeah, I think some of those would be kind of hard to translate. If we're taking this to the the point where you're going to tell your younger self, I think some of those are hard to translate for a young person.
Yeah, definitely.
You could say that, they'd be like, what does that even mean? How does that look in my life?
Oh, especially like this one, like trust your instincts. It's like you've got to have experience and develop that instinct.
As a young person, you don't have much instinct, surely.
So, believe in yourself, like all pretty common ones. But then I was thinking about people. And so, because we talked about Jeff Bezos and all his money that he had, I was like, I'm going to actually have a look and check his out. Now, he's got heaps. He's got tons, and they're all related to investment and stuff. But this one was kind of related to investment. But when I read this and then found the excerpt where it came from, was talking about his marriage. And when he got married, so the quote here is, "Be ready to take big risks and fail." So he goes on to say that many experiments in his business life failed. He's like, but none of them was he more nervous about than asking his wife to marry him.
Cute.
And he just thought, well, if I'm going to do it, I might as well do it properly. And he just took a risk. He kind of did it on a whim. He didn't really plan it too much and come away with the goods. But then she's coming away with the goods, so maybe he wants to go back and tell future self, or go back and tell past self, to avoid it. I don't know, but
well, nowadays,
so that was I thought that was a good one. It kind of relates to the your one about taking opportunities. So he's just saying in that regards, I guess you have to take the risk in the opportunity that presents itself, I guess, and be willing to fail, which I think is a good one. And there's lots of them that I came across that like that failure was the best teacher, and you learn the most out of your biggest failures and stuff. So.
I think you've got to learn in a way how to fail and how to learn from failure too.
Yeah.
Nowadays everyone wins and everyone gets participation, but a lot of time, and especially in life, you fail, so it's good to learn how to fail. I think I learned that quite early on because I was never really good at anything, so I always was last in the pack or bottom sports team or got the lower grades, so I kind of knew how to fail and knew my expectations. So I think it's a good one. Yeah,
so I searched them. So then I don't know why I just stuck with rich people, and then I got to Oprah Winfrey, and then she's put down, which I thought was quite cool. We can have it all, but we can't have it at the same time. Which I think that comes down to like recognizing, like where you are in your current point in time, valuing the things that you have in that current point in time, and then focusing on the things that you want to have in that current point in time. Because that's quite cool, I think, like to say that you can have anything that you want to have.
Just not all at the same time.
And it makes sense. Like, you can't have $1 million when you're 10, unless your parents worked real hard or you get gifted that money.
But you save $200 a week for 30 years?
Yeah, 30 years.
Then you can.
So, I thought that was a really cool one. And then it got me to thinking about, like, going through the life cycle and growing up and in adolescence. Like, all I could think about before I got to high school, man, was playing sport and, like, hanging out with my friends. And then I got to high school and it was more about, like, chasing girls and owning a car. And then I got out of high school and went to university, and I was like, I need to study and get this degree so I can, travel the world. So I think that's quite a cool quote, because it makes sense. Like, we're always constantly changing. We're always getting different opportunities presented to ourselves, and it's just, I guess, the ability to take that opportunity or to strive for something that you don't have and know when you do need to have it and when you don't.
And to recognise those opportunities when they come. Like, it's easy to see them in retrospect to be like, man, that was a good opportunity. But I've had moments where I've sat there been like, whoa, this is it right now, and I need to take this, and I need to say, yep, and have a go. So that's a skill in itself too, I think, is to recognise those opportunities, or even to make opportunities for yourself.
Yeah.
Like, we've got there's someone at work who I'd think about immediately as making opportunities for himself.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good one to do if you can. And the earlier you learn to take and make opportunities is the better. These bits of advice, are these things you would give to your own self, or just like general?
No, just generally, I think. Hey,
yeah. So I have a couple. One, like a kind of shorter one, I think would be, not necessarily I'd say it to myself because I think I did this, but have some bad jobs. When you're, especially end of high school, starting university, get some minimum wage customer service, really, really bad jobs. Your fast foods, your supermarkets, your customer services, your stores, retailers or whatever. Get some of those jobs, because you will hate them and you will get really poor pay for the amount of effort you put in. But you will appreciate better jobs so much more, and you'll appreciate money so much more. When you have to clean, and this happened to me, when you have to clean a toilet cubicle that has poo and vomit all through it on a Sunday night for $11 an hour, you go, wow, okay, that's how much I'm worth.
Yeah.
So now I appreciate my job more, that I have a good one. Still have some poo in my job though.
Yeah.
But not so much.
That's usually self-inflicted stuff though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Vomiting by the toilet, that's your own doing. Man, I'd agree with that. So, and in those sorts of jobs too, like, you learn to appreciate the humans, I think. Like, as wretched as it would have been to be in that toilet cubicle cleaning that, like, you can understand, like, from that side of the coin. Like, I've had some rubbish jobs, and particularly in customer service, where all you're trying to do is help someone, and all they want to do is, like, scream that their burger's cold.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I literally just made it. It's come hot off the press. Like, what can I do to you to make it better? And it doesn't matter really what they want to do. They just feel like yelling at you at the time, or like they get a big internet bill and they call up, and you're just like, wow. We can track that information and what you've been doing. Just been streaming lots of videos, and there you go, your 500 megabyte limit done. Wasn't going to cut it, sorry, I'm afraid. But those jobs where they are bottom of the barrel, they show you your worth too, I think, and also build a little bit of resilience in you.
100%.
Because I've had some rubbish jobs, man. Like, I remember, I think I told you this one about picking beans, and you got to pick them close to the stalk, and your fingers just get carved up, and you're paid by the kg. So you could be there for, like, if you pick 10 kgs in an hour, all good. But if you pick 10 kgs in 8 hours, you're like, wow, that's not really worth it. I'm not getting much money. But I definitely appreciated that job for two reasons. It was outside. It's nice and warm during the summer picking beans, and
free lunch.
Yeah, and you could have
beans,
have a feed. But Yeah, like you said it, like I vowed that day, I was like, I'm not coming back to pick beans ever again.
Actually, that reminds me, I had this actual moment. So I worked, it was only 10 days or 2 weeks, where I worked in a friend's, his family owned a meatworks, like a smaller one.
Yeah.
And I went and worked in their cold store and we were cutting up meat and moving boxes and all this stuff. And his mother, who was the owner, came up to me and she said, Matty, this is why you go to university. And I looked around and I was like, yeah, I'm going to work hard. And it was quite interesting that she chose to say that to me. And I still remember it to this day, but that made me definitely appreciate my opportunities and then work harder for those opportunities that I did have, such as going to university.
Yeah. Yeah, no. So yeah, that's great advice, man. I reckon everyone should know that. And take that opportunity to get that ratchet job from Just Over Broke Recruitment. Because,
Thanks to the sponsors.
yeah, thank you sponsors, because without those jobs, neither of us would be working where we are.
I'd probably be a bit more complacent or unhappy with what we have if we didn't have those experiences. Like if this was the only job I'd ever had, I could say heaps of negative stuff because it'd be all I knew. But because I've cleaned literal human shit off a wall, I don't know how it got that high, but it's definitely made me appreciate this one more.
That's nothing. I've had if we're on the job, like if we're talking about gross things at work, I used to work in a hotel, and I won't say where it is because I love that place to death, but it's somewhere in Scotland, in Edinburgh, and I went in to clean a room, and someone had come up for a hanky-panky weekend.
Yeah, boy.
Just left everything everywhere, condoms, everything, and for some reason the bed was made. Like I was like, wow.
They weren't even on the bed, probably.
Yeah, I was like, wow, they've obviously gone all around the bed, but and luckily I checked it, because if I had left it, someone would have thought there was a murder scene in there, but something gross had happened. I'm guessing that the lady had her period, or potentially the dude got cut or something, but there was blood everywhere on the bed.
Wow.
And I had to clean that up, and I was just like, this is not cool.
Yeah, I think my most horrendous story would be, I used to work at a pool as a lifeguard, which is permanently put off public swimming pools. But apart from the odd poo and code brown, as we called it, I think my worst was we had a weekend every month or something where one of us had to take, I forget, it was an acidic powder, and we had to get on our hands and knees and scrub the sides of the pools, because what would happen is people would jump in, not having showered, and they'd be quite oily, and the human oil, this is the only way I can put it, human oil would coagulate and stick to the sides of the pool and solidify. Wow. So there was human fat all around the pool, and we had to physically scrub it off with this like acid to get it off. It was
that's gross.
It was quite something. A human waste, human fat.
Humans are disgusting.
We're pretty yuck.
I'm saying that treat everyone kindly, which is one of so I wrote down like stuff that stuck with me, and I've only got 4. Then, to be fair, this one's from my uncle, and he always said it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I used to think, like, what does that mean? Like, oh yeah, I know you. Does that mean I'm going to get anywhere further in life, uncle? Now that I know you, but then as I've gone through life, and it comes back to that opportunity thing. Like when you do know people,
you can make opportunities.
Yeah, you can either make them, but then they also present themselves a lot more if you know the right people.
Yeah.
Not saying you have to know 1,000 people, but you just have to know the right people that can help you, and which is why I think he knew a lot of people. Like he knew a lot of different people. So he had a friend that was in a car club. Obviously, friends that used to work at the meatworks. A couple of friends from school who were like lawyers and stuff like that. Like his range of friends was, his network was vastly different from person to person, and it's almost like he had hand-picked them for that reason.
That's brilliant.
And maybe he had, I don't know, but I just remember like because he's the guy who gave me all my rugby knowledge, and they would come around for rugby, and they'd talk, and he'd tell me what each one of them did, and not one of them, apart from him and his butcher mate who he went fishing with all the time, they were the only 2 that worked in the same place. Everyone else was, did different things and worked in different places. So that's one that I got from him. My mum was just, she'd always just say, oh, why don't you just be kind to your brother, just be kind to...
I actually wrote that one down, be nice,
Yeah, and that's one that I got from my mum, and she'd harped on about it like non-stop.
I think I look at it this way, if you're nice, okay, some bad things could come back to you, but the majority of the time, nice things are going to happen back to you. Like and I mean that in a very like literal sense. If you're nice to someone, chances are that same person will be nice back to you later, or they'll be nice to someone else that will be nice back to you.
Yeah.
So it'll come back. The opposite side is if you're nasty or not so nice, then that person is more likely to be nasty to you. That's why I don't understand why people can be so negative or so nasty. Is because it's gonna come back in some shape or form.
It's that old saying, eh? Like violence breeds violence, and all that sort of stuff. So like if you are kind to someone else, then that will breed hopefully kindness. But it's like if you smile at someone, man, everyone smiles back. No one replies with a frown. Like 100%.
And if they do, you're already smiling, so you've already got the joy out of it. So what does it matter?
Yeah, exactly.
And then you smile at the next person along, and they'll smile back.
Yeah. So it's yeah, that was one I got from my mum, and thanks, mum. Hopefully, I have turned out to be a kind human. And I guess we'll find out come D-Day when I face the maker.
Or we have the mums episode, and we bring our mothers in, and we can ask them.
Yeah.
They join the podcast.
Yeah, actually.
Special guest. I have one. This is, I'd almost class it as a bit of a life hack as well. And if you bear the context that I think the meaning of life is happiness, this is where this one comes from.
Yeah.
And this sounds really odd, so forgive me while I explain it, but I think expect less would be one of my tips, or things I'd say to my past self. Just expect less. So I basically live my life expecting very little, or if I do expect something, I expect a lot less of what maybe I should.
Yeah.
And that way, if something does happen, then I'm pleasantly surprised. Sorry.
Yeah.
So
actually, funny you mentioned that. I've got a friend. He did the same thing. Does the same thing. So his I can remember the day he told me this too, because he explained in such detail with such a passion. But he's like, bro, you know what you got to do, man? You just got to under expect and over deliver.
Yeah, that's my motto too.
He's like, you're expecting, like, go trick or treating. You expect one lolly, you get two, bro.
Then you're happy.
It's over delivered already. So I reckon that's a good one as well.
Yeah, because I think for a long time, you live. And this is from experience. I lived with expectations a certain way and thought I should have this and this at this point, and then when I didn't get those things, I was upset and unhappy. But now that I've had my expectations so low, everything surprises me, and I think it's actually part of my job because I teach students, and I never really expect them to say thank you or thanks Mr. Cole for spending the weekend doing this or planning this or trying this. But then one day, one kid will come up and say something really nice, and I say, thanks, Mr. Cole, like, you really helped me with X, Y, Z. And that, because I don't expect all of them to say anything, one comment really is really meaningful for me, and it makes me really happy. But that's the same for everything. Like, I expect, not to have much money, and then when I do have money and I can buy something, like, hey, this is real nice.
Yeah.
Or,
Definitely.
I expect, I expect a very little of my life. But then when something does happen, I'm happy. Whereas the opposite would be expecting too much and always falling below expectations and being really unhappy.
Well, that's what the Buddhist monks are all about, eh? They're like, want for nothing, so that you're open to receiving everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, right. That's great. Which actually, interestingly, if we go back a little bit, we're talking about like being nice to other people. I wrote down here a quote from Nelson Mandela, and it says, "What counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived, it is the difference we have made in the lives of others that will determine the significance of the life that we lead."
There you go.
So, and that's coming from a guy that's probably the ultimate kind person to everybody in terms of like a vision.
In his later years.
Yeah. I'm not sure he's like super nice to the multiple females that he married, but...
Or his early days when he was a political terrorist.
Yeah. So, I thought that was quite cool, man, and relates a little bit to about being kind. The last two that I've got that I would tell myself and like really drill it in, and this one came from a coach at primary school, and he said, but he put it into context afterwards. So this was when we were playing football, and he's like, if you can only kick with 1 foot, you're half a player compared to the one who can kick with 2 feet. And everyone's like, straight away we're like, oh man, we're all half a players because no one can kick with our left. And but then after that he followed that up with like, you just always have to try to be better than you are, or have a want to be better than you currently are, to like strive for something more, which I guess comes back to again that when we talked about like the meaning of life, and my brother-in-law was talking about, it's about progression and growth. I think it's just along those lines. And that stuck with me forever because like I remember that, and then I remember training to be able to kick with my left foot for the longest time, like so long. And then I'll do it at school now, and the kids are like, "Wow, that's amazing!" So well,
That's because you practice.
Yeah, it's actually not that amazing. I just learned how to do it, and I didn't give up on it. And it was something that got given to me really when I got told that I should want to be better than I currently am. So that's one. And then the last thing, and I don't even know where I got this one from, but I've lived by it like ever since. And it's just timing is everything, eh? Like wherever you are in life, like that's what it is. You know, if you get that good deal at for buying a house, you're right place, right time. If you're if you avoid a car crash that happened down the end of your road, you're in the right place at the right time.
It's a bit of luck.
Yeah, it's a little bit of luck, but it is like timing is everything, and I've lived like my life by that. And I've talked about one of my friends, VJ Cameron, he bought into it too. He's like, bro, that's so true. And then because we're heavily into touch at the time at university, and so we used to train all the time, and we're like, oh, bro, the cut's too early or it's too late, and then we got drunk one night and we're like, oh, bro, timing is everything, and we went back out the next day and we just like just bang on the money. So those are the four I'd go back and tell myself. To be fair, they're not overly in depth, but they're definitely things I think you can apply to a lot of things, a lot of scenarios in life.
But I think if we're going on your topic of things that you could tell people, I think that's a way to put it, is to have these 4 short, sharp things that you could communicate. I have 2 more. One of them would be...
Are they goodies?
Yeah, they're always goodies. One of them I've kind of talked about previously, but I'll just put it down as narrow your choices down. Excuse me. And again, it all breeds into my thing of me aiming for happiness, because that's my life. That's my meaning of life. Others may vary. But if you narrow your choices, and again, it kind of leads to expectations, I think. For narrowing choices on things, I think you actually can become a bit more content. Whereas if you have too many choices or too many options, you become discontent.
Yeah.
For example, I think we've talked about this, but the whole idea that when we say to kids nowadays that you can be anything, I think when they have that idea that they can be anything and they don't actually know exactly what they want to be, that can breed a lot of discontent and a lot of unhappiness. Whereas back in the day, 1500s or whatever, if your father was a shoemaker, you became a shoemaker.
Yeah.
And therefore, okay, maybe you didn't love it and you weren't passionate because you're actually a dancer, but now you're a shoemaker, but you got on with it and you weren't as unhappy because you just had to do it to live. Like if you didn't do shoemaking, you would die because you had no food.
Is that a Billy Elliot reference?
Probably. I don't know.
But he wanted to be a dancer, but I don't know what his old man did.
Yeah, so for me, that's something I've learnt and I love it now. Like I narrow down as many choices as I can because it just makes life easier and more enjoyable. For example, as sad as this kind of sounds, I eat the same thing for dinner every single day for weeks at a time. So I make one massive meal, I eat the same thing. So then it stops me from getting home every day and be like, oh, what am I going to make? Do I have the ingredients? Now I have to spend time cooking it. Do I like it? Do I not like it? Oh, yesterday's dinner was better. I don't want to eat this now. I just eat the same thing, and it's narrowed my life down. It's made it so much easier. So things like that. And like I've talked about buying the same shirt 5 different times, but different colours.
Yeah.
Again, the same thing, narrow down your choices, make it easier. And I think it's made me a bit more content with my life and therefore a lot happier.
Yeah, I think the choices thing is valid, eh? Like if we put it into like a teaching context and like how you didn't used to have a choice, you just went to the school that you were zoned for. End of story. Go there, it's all good. But like where I came from, like my mum, she had to go to one school because she was zoned for it. But then by the time that me and my brothers and sisters had come around, there's no more zoning anymore. So we all went to different schools, which would have been like a major nightmare for her.
Yeah.
Logistically, to like get everyone to school on time, pick everyone up from different schools, get them across to sports practices, drop us off on the weekends. Now, if we were all at the same school, it would have been one trip done and dusted. So yeah, man, choices probably made life more, I don't want to say depressing, but it's probably has caused a lot of angst amongst individuals as to what to do.
Yeah, that's why I reckon less choice is better in some sense.
Yeah, like we've been trying to buy a fridge of all things. It just keeps food cold.
How many different options do you have?
There's so many, and we've looked at so many and just been like, whoa, I don't know. Honestly don't know what to choose.
And here's the reverse of that story. So when I moved into my house, my parents were like, we have this extra fridge, please take it out of our house because we don't need it.
Yeah.
I had no choice, and I was like, okay, fridge, done.
Yeah, definitely, man. Because like we can get ones with like ice coolers and ones that dispense ice. And
Fruit crisper drawer.
Yeah, fruit crisper drawers, like big freezers, small freezers.
Half and half double door ones.
Freezer drawers. I don't know if anyone's into those, but they're a big thing at the moment.
There's a really good TED talk about choices, and he would, to that end, like to your fridge example, and the thing he talks about is genes. But so for your fridge one, and the reason it does make people so unhappy and discontent is, so let's say you buy a fridge, and you've done heaps of research on it, you got the best price, you've haggled, it fits your dimensions, whatever, and you take that fridge home, but then, because you've done so much research and thought about so much, as soon as you get it home, you're like, actually, I wonder if I should have got this other one.
Yeah.
Or you get a mailer in the post box, and you're like, oh, actually, they had a slightly better price, or we could have got this slightly different model for whatever, and then suddenly you're unhappy with your purchase because there's so much choice. But like for me, I've got one fridge because that's the one my parents wanted to throw out and they gave it to me.
Yeah.
So I don't now think about fridge because it's done.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, narrowing choices is definitely a good thing, man. It's like sometimes there's like if you go to a restaurant, the best restaurants you go to are the ones that do 7 things really well. You know.
Oh, some of the best meals I had when I lived in South Korea, they had whole restaurants that just made one thing, and they'd be like, this restaurant is famous for their pork soup, and that's all they made, and you go in there and that's what you had, and it was fantastic.
And you didn't have to decide, and you got in and out, and you were mucking around, and you didn't have to wait for everyone's food to be served at the same time because it's all
and then
different
think about it,
meals.
if you go to a restaurant here and you have a party of 7 or 8 people, and then they all have different meals, and then you're eating your lamb, and then you're like, well, actually the steak looks pretty good. Now I don't like my lamb anymore. So yeah, my advice to my past self especially would be just to narrow down the choices, because I did think I had too much choice and wanted to do too many different things, and therefore became discontent at the opportunity cost lost of not doing some things. The other one I had, and I don't know exactly how to word it, but there's this thing about talent. People are like naturally gifted or talented, and I'm not sure I exactly buy into that. And the reason I tell this to my younger self is because there's this whole thing about the 10,000 hour rule. If you do something for 10,000 hours, you become like a master and expert at it. So, if we're looking at going back in time, I'd love to tell myself that if there's something I really want to do, really passionate about, that I want to master, if I just spent time doing it, get my 10,000 hours, then I can be really good at it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just don't be afraid. Like, don't, and you'll see like people that celebrities or artists or musicians or sports players, you look into all their backstories, 99.9% of the time, they fit this kind of mold of, spending heaps and heaps of time doing it, heaps and heaps of effort, trainings, energy, and they fit this mold of reaching their 10,000 hours really quickly, which is why they're the top of their game. Very rarely someone just naturally was born talented and became, the best golfer or the best musician or, learn to play an instrument or sing. There's always this time and effort put in, and I think if you start early enough, you can get there. So my advice to my past self would be, if there is something I wanted to do like that, start then.
Yeah, I don't necessarily buy into the talent thing for a couple of reasons. Like football's a good example. Like you hear all the time, like they sign kids like Lionel Messi. He got signed on a napkin, out of Argentina. Someone seen him play.
Like, at some really young age, like 13 or something.
Yeah, ridiculously young. But on the flip side of that, that's all he's probably ever did as a child. Kick the ball, that's not talent. That's that 10,000 hours he's put in since he was the age of 3. And that was his passion. He loved doing it, playing outside, being with his friends, and he was able to turn it into a career. But yeah, the talent thing, I'm kind of with you on that one, man. Actually, interesting, there was a article that came out in stuff.co.nz this week, and it talked about Ben Smith, the All Black rugby player. And he wrote a letter to, I can't remember if it was to his, I don't know, I can't remember who he wrote it to, but basically what he was saying in the letter is that he hopes that he has instilled in his kids that you just have to be willing to try. because he called himself just basically a battler. He never made any age group rugby teams where he was from, but he just worked hard. And then, he played one test for the All Blacks, and there was like another, I think, 4 years before he got his second test. And then once he got a second test, it turned into a whole lot more tests, And so there's a 5-year gap between the time that he'd reached the All Blacks and then the time that he was a mainstay in the All Blacks.
Burden, easy to give up then too.
Oh, definitely. And like he's just like, I just tried, I just battled and just did my best every week, and that's what I want to give to my kids. So hopefully more kids read that, even more people, where they just understand that talent is not necessarily everything, but hard work is definitely something. And I think it brings back to that that motivational thing about attitude and how much that equals, which I think is 110%.
Oh, yeah.
And
Metal adage.
Yeah, and what's talent's like 90%.
Something like that, yeah.
But hard work is like whatever. So, yeah, man, I'd agree with you on the talent thing. I definitely think like people are naturally better at some things than others.
But you'll find there's probably a root in that, like, you look at Sonny Bill Williams, he's obviously an athlete by trade, so therefore he does cross codes and different sports, but that's his job, is he's a full-time athlete, so he can cross.
Yeah, and you wouldn't say he's a talented, like, when I think of talent, it's like something that, like, say you pick up for the first time and you just start juggling, and you're like, oh, I can juggle one thing now, I can juggle 7, like, within the space of an hour. I'll call that talent. Something that you do that not the average person can do, and you've just started doing it. I'll call that talent.
But I think you'd find for those people that pick up and juggle, you talk to them and they're probably like, oh, my parents grow oranges, and I catch the oranges when they fall down. So you find it's actually rooted in some experience or practice. So I think kids, especially nowadays, have this myth that people are talented and that they can't do certain things. But I would say to them, you could do almost anything you wanted to do. If you're 4'3" and you love basketball and your dream's to be a basketball player, if you practice, okay, you're not going to be as tall as everyone, but man, you might make it. Yeah, but if you're willing to put in that time and effort, I'll back you.
Yeah, exactly. And then that's that thing where in that scenario where they are 4'3", they have to find a point of difference, and become better than someone else, better than everyone else at that thing.
And they'll have to actually probably work harder than everyone else because they're at a slight disadvantage. But it's not to say you can't do it. So if you're 4'3", don't just say I can never play basketball in my life. But you'll have to work hard, if not harder than everyone else. But you could still do it.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, that'll be some great advice I think to give to other kids, is definitely tell yourself about the 10,000 hours. I had heard that before, and I've tried to use it on a couple of occasions, like trying to learn how to play the guitar. I think it's been like 9 years now, and I still can only play actually I can play 8 songs now.
That's good.
But I learned 2 this year, but I just don't put enough time and effort into it, and that's partly because I'm keen on it, but it's just
just time.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. Time.
But also, and I know this from my background of sport, is that, not to say I'm a good sportsman, but I studied sport at university, but it's not only practice, but it's purposeful practice, like practice to make you better. If you want to be a football player and your dream is to be a football player and you just kick a ball against your wall for 9-10 years and you get 10,000 hours, okay, that'll help to some degree, but then can you run? Can you pass? Do you have team awareness? Can you see space on the field? Do you know the rules? So it's actually purposeful practice as well, combined with 10,000 hours that can get you to be successful. And so the earlier you know that, and the earlier you put in that time and effort, the sooner you'll get there. Yeah.
Cool, man. I like that. I think we've got some good advice to give to.
So do we summarise them? So my one would be take opportunities, expect less in life, narrow your choices, and you can kind of make your own talent, grow your own talent by getting to 10,000 hours. That'd be a summary of my things I'd say to myself, my past self.
Yeah, and to be fair, I'd probably I would tell myself my 4 things, but I would try and instill into him, or to myself, the importance of those. So just being kind to people, which I think I've done a pretty good job at. My mum's always harped on about it, and I feel like I'm pretty kind to most people. the one about being better, just always trying to be better than you were the day before, would be definitely something. And I'd try and tell myself like that's something that also drags up the other people around you. Like it's always that kind of lead by example thing. Like I've been trying to get fit because I've got 2 kids now and they jump all over you, and so I just was doing press ups, and like now my younger 2 just like when I'm doing them they started just counting to 10, and then now they get down and they do 3 of their own. And to be fair, it looks more like them having sexual intercourse than doing press ups. But hey man, I would never have, like I don't imagine that he would have done it if I said get down here with me and do press ups. But because he's seen me doing it, he's like, oh yeah, Dad does it, that's a normal thing, I'll get down here and do it too. So
maybe the sooner we get him to do is 10,000 press ups, he'll be a little bodybuilder.
Yeah, potentially. And either that or a real ladies man. I don't know. We'll find out.
Depending on how his technique goes. I was gonna say when I first read this topic of the letter to past self, it immediately got to me because I do this exercise at the end of every school year with my students. I get them to write a letter to their future self.
Oh yeah.
10 years from then.
Yeah.
Well, I think I'll actually go 6 or 7 because that'll be the end of their high school. But I said I'll post it to them. So I haven't really got around to doing the full circle yet.
Yeah.
But I am at that point where I'm asking them now to write letters for their future self, and so it'd be interesting to see what they do say to themselves. Not that I read them, I totally seal them, but
oh, do you?
Yeah, I don't read them. They're totally for themselves. But I've got like a few packs in my cupboard that I'll send out in 4 or 5 years from now.
Oh, nice man. That's a good idea. And I wonder if they're gonna read it and go, yeah, I've hit the mark, or they're gonna go, holy shit, oh way missed. Hopefully heaps of them are like, wow.
Yeah.
I was quite clever back then, and
I wrote 3 sentences and I missed an opportunity.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think that's good. So yeah, for my fault, I probably should summarise them a little bit better. I'm kind of just dragging through my notes here, trying to find out where I was talking about. But not who you know, what you know. And I think that's a cool one to have because it just means that you grow your friendship circle, and it's good to have that variety in your life. Be kind to everyone. Thanks, Mum. Grow yourself, and then timing is everything. So if you miss out on something, just know that you were supposed to be there at that point in time, or if you receive something as well, you're in the right place at the right time.
Yeah. So if you've got ideas for things you'd say to your past self, or you think that there's probably a message we could pass on to the younger generation, then hit us on the social medias. Chuck, if you've got an idea, something you'd say to your younger self, your lessons learnt and your exploits overseas, then let us know as well. And
we know you've had some life experience, man, so it'd be good to get your view on things. And you might even become our first guest on the show. If you,
we're looking at having guests. We've got a few we're thinking about. We just want to work out the technical side of it.
Yeah, you'd have a couple of historical things to go by. First listener and then first guest. So yeah. That being said, man, are we done?
I think we're done.
Have we unpacked this?
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. So that was us for episode 4, guys. Letter to your past self. It's been a pleasure. I'm Haydn.
I'm Matty.
We are D&M.
And feel free to slide on in.